There were several large explosions in Kirovskoye in Crimea, located 140 miles from the front line in Ukraine. There were at least 4 large explosions in the area within a 2-minute period. It is reported that warehouses with ammunition are burning. It's unknown what kind of weapon is used for the strike, but considering the distance, we can be almost certain that the Storm Shadow missile is used. This strike is a continuation of the Ukrainian strategy to target deep behind Russian lines, which is a typical operation of shaping the battlefield. The second phase of the Ukrainian counteroffensive will be deadly. From the other news, Ukrainian defense forces returned Rivnopil under their control, which is another settlement which is captured from Russian occupiers. In meantime, Russians' attempts to rebuild the Chongar crossing bridge destroyed this week by Storm Shadow missiles. Should someone tell them that their work is futile?
Работайте, братья.
And the Ukrainian guerrilla behind Russian lines is also active. Atesh partisans called Crimea their main base and showed how they monitor Russian ships. Crimea is our main base. We have eyes on every corner here. We register every movement of the Russians, their equipment or ships. They will take the ships from Crimea or bury them in Sevastopol Bay, the partisans assured. And after the humiliating Wagner run on Moscow, Putin's much-anticipated address to the nation lasted 6 minutes. He said the usual stuff about enemies of Russia, promised that an armed rebellion would have suffered defeat, thanked Russians for their patriotism and unity, thanked Lukashenko for his contribution, but added that patriotism of citizens played a decisive role. Obviously, he spent several of the 6 minutes blaming the neo-Nazis in Kiev and their Western patrons. The one thing worthy of attention, Putin said Wagnerites are also Russian patriots. It was an attempt to use them against their comrades in arms without them knowing. He promised those who stopped at the last possible line a chance to sign a contract with Russian Ministry of Defense, come home or leave for Belarus. No staff decisions were mentioned. Prigozhin responded and talked about his deal with Lukashenko. Lukashenko extended his hand and offered to find a solution to continue the work of Wagner PMC in legal jurisdiction.
И нашим решением развернуться были 2 важнейших фактора. Первый фактор – это то, что мы не хотели пролить русскую кровь. Второй фактор – мы шли для демонстрации своего протеста, а не для свержения власти в стране. В это время Александр Григорьевич Лукашенко протянул руку и предложил найти пути решения для дальнейшей работы ЧВК «Вагнер» в законной юрисдикции. Колонны развернулись назад и ушли в полевые лагеря.
Russian newspapers on Prigozhin's armed uprising
is reflected in today's Russian papers, although it's hard to find Yevgeny Prigozhin's face, a fleeting glimpse here in Moskovsky Komsomolets of the man behind the armed uprising. The paper's headline, Prigozhin will go, but the problems remain. Russia displayed its vulnerability to the whole world and to itself. At full speed, Russia had rushed to the edge of the abyss and with the same speed stepped back from it. The most terrifying scenario was averted, an armed conflict at home, a full-scale split in the security agencies, battles on city streets, including Moscow. Those in power at the top had forgotten that the letters P and M in PMC, that's private and military in private military company, are incompatible. A monopoly is almost always bad, but there is one monopoly that is good and necessary, the state's monopoly on legalised force. If that monopoly isn't there, then as we've just seen, the very existence of the state is under threat. Of course, people hearing this in Ukraine would say, just a moment, legalised force. It is the Russian military's invasion of Ukraine that threatened the very existence of the Ukrainian state.
Ukrainians are continuing their slow but steady advancement in Bakhmut. This is the same once road of life to Bakhmut through Kromove, for which there were heavy battles for a long time. Now it's under full control of the Ukrainian armed forces. Russia is returning troops to eastern Ukraine that it withdrew because of Prigozhin's mutiny and is suffering much greater losses than the Ukrainian armed forces, Deputy Defense Minister Hanna Maliar said. According to Maliar, over the past week, the Russians have lost 8 times more personnel in wounded and killed than the defense forces on all fronts. The occupiers began to return to eastern Ukraine the units that were going to be sent to the Moscow region because of the Wagnerian rebellion. During the intensification of the political crisis in Russia, they gathered troops from the eastern Ukraine and tried to move them to the Moscow region. But because the events there quickly exhausted themselves, these troops are returning back, Maliar said.
Smaller objectives in order to have a result to show.
A gas stop at Donbas. Ukrainian president getting coffee, taking selfies with the defenders during a working visit in the area. And again, tensions over the Black Sea. 2 Su-27S intercepted an RC-135 reconnaissance aircraft and 2 Typhoon multi-purpose fighters of the British Air Force approaching the border of the Russian Federation over the Black Sea, as reported by the Ministry of Defense of the Russian Federation.
Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe. Also, if you want to support Warthog Defense, please become our member and get early access to new videos, exclusive members-only videos, and become administrator in comment section. The membership link is in the description.
Rescues every day. We had a guy last week, it's 6 rescues in 6 days. You know, he's doing the job every day.